Um, Everybody, it is 5:01, and we are calling the December 8th meeting of the Certificate of Appropriateness Committee meeting to order. Welcome to the meeting. My name is Vershay Height. I am the chairwoman of this committee. I would like to start by acknowledging that we are conducting this meeting using a remote electronic platform. I would ask for your patience today as we proceed. There may be slight delays as we transition between speakers, participants, and presentations. The Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. We conduct evidentiary hearings on applications for certificates of appropriateness. Before we begin the evidentiary hearings on today's agenda, I would like to provide some important information about the steps taken to ensure each party's due process rights are protected as we proceed in this remote platform. First, today's meeting will be conducted in accordance with the newly enacted statutes in Session Law 2020-3, which allow for remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during declarations of emergency. Second, each applicant on today's agenda was notified before being placed on the agenda that this meeting would be conducted using a remote electronic platform. Every applicant on today's agenda has consented to the committee conducting the evidentiary hearing on their request using this remote platform. We will also confirm today at the start of each evidentiary hearing that the participants in the evidentiary hearing consent to the matter proceeding this remote platform. If there is any objection to a matter proceeding in this remote platform, the case will be continued. Third, notice of this meeting was provided to the applicants and the public in numerous ways, well beyond the legal requirements for noticing this meeting and the evidentiary hearings. Specifically, notice of today's evidentiary hearings was provided by mail to all property owners and tenants within 100 feet of each subject property. Each notice letter notified the recipient of the remote meeting platform. The letters also stated to contact the city immediately if there were any objections to the evidentiary hearing for which the notice was sent or to the remote meeting platform. No case is proceeding today in which the city has been contacted by an applicant, participant, or other individual with an objection to the case or to the matter being heard in this remote meeting platform. Notice was also provided by posting notice on the site of each property, publishing notice in the newspaper, and providing notice on the city's website. The notices for today's meeting contained information about the means by which the public can access and view the remote meeting as the meeting occurs. Fourth, any individual wishing to participate in today's evidentiary hearings was required to sign up prior to the meeting to participate. Information about this sign-up requirement, along with the information about how to sign up to participate, was included in the mailed notice letter sent to each property owner within 100 feet of each subject property. This information was also included on the RHDC's city website, and among other information, a link to the website was included in all methods of notice. All individuals participating in today's evidentiary hearings were also required to submit a copy of any presentation, document, exhibit, or other material that they wish to submit at the evidentiary hearing prior to today's meeting. All materials that the city received from the participants in today's cases, as well as a copy of the staff's report and staff's presentations, were posted online to board docs prior to the meeting. All materials that will be discussed today can be viewed at any time during today's meeting by visiting raleighnc.gov/agendas and selecting the RHDC Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. Finally, all individuals who signed up to participate in an evidentiary hearing on today's agenda, as well as all city staff participants, were emailed a witness oath form prior to today's meeting. Any individual planning to testify or submit evidence in an evidentiary hearing was notified that they must sign and return the oath form prior to today's meeting. We will also reaffirm everyone's oath on record at today's meeting. Take a breath. Okay. All right, so now we'll do some introductions of the commission. This commission is a city-appointed council membership. It is made up of residents of historic districts, architects, intern architects, architectural consultants, contractors, attorneys, historians, urban planners, and historic preservationists. At this time, I'd like for each commissioner to introduce themselves and highlight your expertise. I will start actually with, I'll start with Raz, and then I'll go around from there.
Thank you, Rashay. I'm Francis Raspberry. I'm legal counsel to the committee.
Thanks, Raz. Sandy Feaster.
Hi, Sandy Feaster. I have a master's in historic preservation and served on Historic Preservation Commission for another municipality.
Thanks. Janine McAlfee. Say your last name, Janine.
Never call it.
Call it.
I'm
Sorry.
Janine Pollock. That's okay. I am serving my second term as commissioner on this board, and my background, I have a bachelor's and master's in architecture, and I work in a design build firm here in Raleigh.
John Reese.
Hi, I'm John Reese. This is my first year on the commission. I guess coming up on my second, but my first year right now. And I live in the Glenwood, Brooklyn neighborhood, historic neighborhood, and I am a registered architect here in Raleigh.
And Curtis Casefang.
I'm Curtis Casefang. I'm an architectural consultant. I live in Oakwood. Previously, I spent 6 years on the commission and then 10 years on Design Review Advisory Committee, and I'm back on the commission, and this is my first term back on the commission this round.
Great. Thank you, Curtis. And I realized I didn't quite introduce myself. I'm Rashay Height. I am a local architect and resident of Raleigh as well. And this is my first term on the commission and my first time serving as chairwoman. Okay. I'm sorry, Catherine, do you want to do an introduction as well? No?
Sure. If I'm Catherine Hill, I'm with the Raleigh City Attorney's Office. I'm just here watching today. So.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right. With that, we will. Oh, sorry. Okay. So next, now we will we'll do staff introductions. Joining us today, we have Tanya Tully, Senior Preservation Planner. Colette Canane, our preservation planner, Erin Morton, our preservation planner, Nicole Toms, recorder of the minutes, and JP Mansolf, a moderator. So thank you, staff, for being with us today. Okay. Again, one of the things that we do in preparation for these meetings as a commission is to read the minutes from our previous COA meeting. And if I could have a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, great. That is moved by Chris and second by John. Okay, are there any corrections or additions that need to be brought to the record?
I do want to bring 2 items up, which I'm not sure are accurate in the record. On page 17, item B, we are finding that the enclosure of the front porch may be incongruous, and I believe our discussion established that it was not incongruous. And same thing happened on 18C, maybe, and we established that it wasn't incongruous. Double negative.
Great. Okay. Tanya, are you good? Do the staff have that?
Yes, we can make these changes.
Okay, great. Are there any other corrections or additions before we make a motion to adopt? All right. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes with the modification proposed by Curtis? Okay, that's John Reese.
I'll second it. Curtis.
Okay, thank you, Curtis. All in favor, please raise your hand. And I will say your names. That is Curtis, Janine, John, and Sandy, and me as well. So that is unanimous. Okay. Moving on, there were 9 minor work applications approved by staff over the last month. So again, we thank you staff for working through those. Okay, we are now ready to hear applications. In addition to the above, the commission members received a copy of each application, staff reports, and were to have visited each property. Staff reports were made publicly available through the agenda. Next, we'll go to summary proceedings, of which I believe there is 1. So summary proceeding cases were received and evaluated by staff to be routine, non-precedent setting, and substantially in conformance with the guidelines. Unless there are objections, these will be approved without any evidentiary hearing. They will be approved by a single vote of the committee. After approval of the summary proceeding cases, we will conduct evidentiary hearings for the remaining applications. Is there a brief presentation for the summary proceeding today?
We have one if you want to see it.
That's fine. Is there a desire on the commission to see it? Looks like we typically look at it. No? No?
I
Good
have
shape?
no need. Good shape.
Okay, let's see. All right, so are there any objections to the approval of this summary proceeding? No? Okay, so I guess I need a motion to approve the summary proceeding. John, that's a first. Okay.
I'll second.
Janine, Curtis, second. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, and that's Janine, John, Sandy, and Curtis, and myself. Okay, great. Thank you all for that. Sorry, just really quickly, I warned Tanya that I hadn't done anything for summary proceedings before. There's some other items in here, maybe Tanya and Raz, about approving the agenda and then the approval of summary proceedings. I think we've already done that. Can we move on to the evidentiary hearings now, or do we need to get a motion to approve an agenda?
No, you're fine. In the remote format, we know in advance if anybody has signed up in opposition to pull it off, and no one did.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So now we are now ready to conduct the evidentiary hearing phase of the meeting. Evidentiary hearings are conducted in a quasi-judicial format. During the hearing, we received evidence to determine that proposed changes are not incongruous with the special character of the historic district or historic property. We review this evidence in light of the design guidelines referenced in the city ordinance. Each application is heard in the same way. The quasi format of the hearing requires that we be impartial. The written staff reports are evidence presented just as any other evidence and were made available to us, the applicants, and the public at the same time. If any of us have had reason to discuss the specific details of an application before today, we will ask to be excused from hearing that application. There is no time limit on testimony, but repetition is discouraged. Because of the quasi-judicial format of our hearings, we are required by North Carolina law to affirm or swear persons that speak before the commission and offer evidence. Although the oath and affirmation forms have been signed previously, all speakers will be sworn or affirmed at the beginning of each case. Staff will be sworn or affirmed now for all of the cases on the agenda. I am going to call you each by name, staff, and swear you in individually. Tanya Tully, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give on the matters on today's agenda are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Colette Canane, sorry, Colette. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give on the matters on today's agenda is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
This is Colette. I do.
Great, thank you. Aaron Morton, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give on the matters on today's agenda is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Aaron Morton, I do.
Great, thank you. Okay. Let's hear our first case. Okay. Sorry, I've got a few forms in front of me here. All right, so we'll now hear case COA 0156-2021, 410 Glenwood Avenue. And it looks like we have a list of people signed up to speak for this today. I'm just going to go in the order that I see in front of me as far as swearing you all in. Okay. Is Fred Belladin on the call?
Yes,
Hi, Fred. Do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
I do.
Okay. And do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Lucas Posada?
Hello, I'm here.
Hi. Do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
I do.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Brittany Mackenber?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Do you
Hi.
confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
Yes.
Okay. And do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony that you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Morris Adjemi, you may need to correct my pronunciation of your last name.
That's fine. Hi, this is Morris.
Hi. Do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
Yes, I do.
Great. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you. Jason Davis,
Yes.
do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
Yes.
Great. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Eli Einstadt,
Yes, hi.
do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. And Jamie Schwelder,
Yes.
do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
Yes.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Great. And now I will turn it over to Raz to add what he needs to add on our behalf.
Madam Chair, the only prompt in your speaker's notes related to the fact that we weren't sure if an attorney would appear to represent the applicant here, since Mr. Belladin is shown as the applicant for Clearscapes. At the previous hearing of this case, at last month's hearing, I think Fred offered the disclosure and acknowledgement that he was appearing as a fact witness only. So I would just want to restate that, and if Fred is going to be the kickoff speaker as opposed to the attorney for the applicant. We just want to make sure that he acknowledges that he is not appearing in a representative capacity in a way that would run afoul of the state bar formal ethics opinion. So I guess I'll defer to Ms. Schwedler on that. If she's going to appear on the hearing of this matter as counsel for the applicant, that'll be fine, and there's no need for me to make further comment on that point.
Yes, I'll make such an appearance, and Mr. Belladin will lead most of the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, I'll call on staff to make a presentation summarizing the key issues.
Thanks, Rashay. We'll wait just 1 minute for Tanya to pull up our presentation. All right, while that's coming up, this is case CUA 0156-2021. It is for 410 Glenwood Avenue, which is the former Pine Street Creamery, which is a Raleigh historic landmark. The request is to construct a new building, construct a loggia, construct UNER, make changes to COA 118-2020, and implement a signage plan. Next slide. We reviewed all of the site photos last meeting, so I'll go pretty quickly through these. It's a pretty large site. If you'll recall, this is the view from Tucker Street, and we have a few of those. Next. Still view from Tucker, moving towards Glenwood. This is the Tucker and Glenwood intersection, the historic Creamery building. Next slide. Again, moving south on Glenwood, this is the historic Creamery building. Next slide. This is the addition to that building that was approved to be removed in last year's COA application. Next slide. Again, that same building. Next. And this is the view of the property from West North Street. Next slide. Staff's recommendation at this meeting is to discuss the parking deck and the proposed signage plan. Next slide. Just as a reminder, the COA that was approved last year, 118-2020, established a maximum building footprint and height for future new detached construction within a specific buildable area and the removal of the rear addition, and that was approved. So this application is for the architectural details and a few small changes to that previous application. Next slide. New information was provided by the applicant since the publication of the staff report. That includes updated drawings with new details regarding the parking deck, a material sample, and a presentation, which the applicant will review all of those changes. So I'll pass it to Fred now, and we'll pull up his presentation.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the committee, for taking the time to hear us today. Am I waiting on the presentation to be pulled up?
Yes, just 1 second.
Okay, just making sure. So while Colette's pulling it up, I'm going to offer a brief summary of what we heard at the last meeting and what we've endeavored to do to address those questions. So one of the key issues was the question of how transparent the deck facade would be, specifically in terms of how much of the interior of the deck would be visible through it. So with that, one of our limitations is that we have a certain open area requirement that we need to meet per building code. Since the last meeting, we have gone back to the City of Raleigh code officials and worked with them, and we'll share a little more detail on that in a later slide. Next slide, please. Second point, there was a request for some additional views of the parking deck. We have introduced additional views, daytime and nighttime views from different vantage points that you'll see in this presentation. Third was clarifying some additional detail. The renderings are carefully done. I want to make the point that the proposed mesh material has actually been modeled in the rendering software, so it should be as accurate as possible within the constraints of current modeling technology. And as part of that, we are also going to introduce some diagrams to clarify exactly what portions of the deck are sloped and what portions of the deck are flat. And then finally, I believe you might have received separately an updated submission. Janine, I know this is a minor point, but you had asked for changes to be bubbled. So if you've got the updated presentation, they are bubbled, or sorry, the updated submission, they are bubbled within that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Morris Adjmi with Morris Adjmi Architects to walk through this in a little more detail.
Thank you, Fred. Good evening, Chair Height and Commissioners. We'll take you through the presentation, and we're here. I'm joined with other members from my office. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer those as well. Can we see the next slide, please?
Is it working now?
We see the presentation.
Okay, what?
Is this slide that the applicant is?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, now we can.
Okay, I'll rewind. Is that
On
better?
the correct slide?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, sorry about that. Good evening, Chair Height and Commissioners. Thank you, Fred, for making the introduction. I'm here joined by some of the other members from my office, and we'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards. We wanted to start with this section, and we have a series of renders, both day and night, as well as some photos of the actual material, and hopefully we explain the areas of the parking deck that are sloped, flat, and I can indicate those as well. This is showing 4 views, and as you move closer to the building, the visibility is reduced, and I'll show you that in the next slide. Here, you can see starting all the way on the left, which is the west side of Glenwood, let me see if I can do something else.
I think you've lost your audio again. It might be cutting in and out.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
That's a little bit choppy.
Is that better?
Yeah, that sounds fine. Let's keep going.
Okay, I'm just using my phone. I don't know where I dropped off, but we've oriented the material and we sent a sample to show how the visibility is reduced from looking from below, and the closer you get to the building, the less visibility you have. So here, all the way on the left is on the west side of Glenwood, and then as you move closer, the next one, second from the left, is on the sidewalk across from the plaza, and then within the plaza, and then looking directly up. And we have a few views, which we'll show you now. If you keep going to the next slide. One thing that I'm going to let Fred.
We lost you again, but it sounds like you're
I
about
don't know what to tell you.
Brad. So.
Can you hear me?
You're back.
Now we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're having some technical issues here. Fred, are you going to jump in and talk about the 42% versus the 30%?
Yes, happy to. So at the November meeting, what we had showed within the renderings was a 42% open area for the mesh. That was the minimum open area that was necessary to meet the 25% ventilation requirement for a parking deck. And that was predicated on the east side or the railroad facing facade being closed. Based on the feedback we heard at the last meeting, the team has gone back to work with the City of Raleigh code officials, and they've agreed that the east facade can be treated as a right-of-way rather than a property line. What that has done is allowed us to reduce the open area of the mesh to 30%. So that is now the minimum that we can put on the facade, meet the ventilation requirements, and all of the renderings that you are looking at tonight reflect that 30% mesh. It's hard to see on screen, but if you have this presentation on your desktop or laptop and zoom in, you can see some of the differences between the two. And then lastly, to point out once again, the mesh that you see, the 30% is actually modeled in these renderings accurately. So this should reflect a very accurate representation of the visibility during both day and night. That'll turn it back over to Morris.
And I hope you can hear, and I hope you can hear me. Next slide, please. So at the 1028 meeting, the commissioners asked for additional views, which we're going to provide. We also have day and night views. This is a view across the plaza looking at the building. I'll get into a little more detail in some future slides about the slope.
I think we lost your audio again, Mr. Morris.
Hello? Can you unmute Brittany McComber?
She's unmuted now.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
But we can hear you now.
Okay. So at the 1028 meeting, we were asked to show some additional views, which we've done, and we'll see both day and night.
I think you actually have two open mics now, which is creating an echo.
Okay.
Morris, are you going to be speaking? You're on your line. Are you speaking through Brittany's line? I just want to make sure that we're not crossing and having two lines open. Morris, are you there? Okay, I'm going to unmute Brittany and see if we can get audio through Brittany.
Can you hear me? I'm on Brittany's line. Hello?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I think, can we get the award for the worst technology? Sorry about that. Hopefully this is going to work. At the October 28th meeting, we were asked for the additional views. I don't know where I dropped off, but we hope that the new rendering views will demonstrate how the parking achieves the goals of reducing and screening the visibility to the interior, creating a deep and layered facade on the outside of the building, and minimizes the visual tension between the sloped and the flat areas of the garage. This is the evening view where you see the warm glow of the light, and we're using approximately 3,000 Kelvin lamp, which will be warm and more like a residential feel as opposed to industrial quality. In the next slide, it's a view from the plaza, and you can see how the visibility is reduced. As Fred mentioned earlier, we modeled all of the screens, so this is an accurate representation of the visibility from this point of view. We also added some fins on the facade to further accentuate the depth of that facade and articulate the divisions between the screening panels. And the next view is an evening view of this from the same vantage point. Again, you just get a warm glow from inside of the structure. And we, in the next view, this is on North Street. This is the same view that you would see on Tucker. This is a section where the garage floor plates are flat, and we'll see in the next views a close-up detail showing the flat plate, which is next slide, please. The flat plate, which is what the same view that we showed last time, We've identified the sections on the building in red where that occurs. And there's another drawing which will show that in more detail. In the next slide, you'll see the slope floor plates. And you also see how the layering of the facade in front of that reduces the visibility. The area where you see those slope floors are indicated as well in the lower key plan on the right. And then these are the 4 elevations. As you can see, we're proposing the same treatment on all 4 sides in terms of the articulation of the bays, the screening material, and the diagonal bracing as well. And on the right side, the red areas are the slope portions, and the blue are the flat plates in that upper right-hand corner indication. And next slide, please. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you for your patience as we work through the technological issues.
I apologize.
It's no problem. It's no problem. It happens. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone else from the applicant team? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this case?
Mute this, and you can put that on now. Unless they ask me to call.
Okay. Guessing that is a no. All right. So do we have any questions from the commission for the applicant? Curtis?
Trying to unmute myself. Handful of questions. For Mr. Belladin, as far as on the renderings, I assume one of the limitations of the rendering is that the mesh depth is not rendered. It's rendered as a 30% open. Is that a correct assumption?
Rendered. Advanced spread.
Thanks, Curtis. Sorry that took a minute to unmute.
No worries.
I'm going to invite Brittany to confirm this, but my understanding is that the mesh is actually rendered as a 3-dimensional object that matches the actual sample if you've had a chance to see it.
Wow.
The actual mesh is rendered in 3D.
Okay. Cool.
So
Yeah,
Curtis, to answer your question, when you look at the renderings, you see that the light looks like it's thrown up a little bit, and that's again because the mesh is oriented angled up.
Yep.
So it should be, again, as accurate as we can possibly be.
It's reflecting off of the actual mesh.
Okay, good. And then 2 more questions. Do we have any similar angles expressed of the parking deck slope expressed on the historic structure?
It's a good question. You know, obviously it's mostly a rectilinear building, but you have the moments at the parapet at the tower where you pick up some of the angles.
Okay. And the way the historic structure sits on Glenwood Avenue, if I recall correctly, it is on a grade, a slope. Is that true?
The Glenwood Avenue facade slopes from a 2-story building on the north side at the tower on Tucker Street to a 1-story building at the south.
And the glazing line relative to the street, does that form, is it parallel to the street or is it at an angle to the street? Or is the street at the angle to it, actually?
The street is at an angle to the glazing line.
Okay.
The windows at the ground floor step up to follow the grade.
Gotcha. Thank you. Those were my questions.
Good question.
I just wanted to clarify, the facade itself is not lit. The lighting that you're speaking of is ambient lighting coming from the garage. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay. At this point, then, I will close the public hearing and turn to internal discussion.
I'll hop in.
Go for it.
I always seem to. My feeling is what we've seen coming back here. While we do see the diagonals of the deck, parking deck expressed through the perforated metal, I find them to be quite softened relative to the way we saw it on the previous hearing, and also noting that, in truth, the way the historic structure engages the grade on Glenwood Avenue actually does introduce a diagonal. While I don't love the expression of the diagonal, I think being that congruous doesn't mean match. I think what we see even in the evening, I find it to be congruous with the historic structure. That's my take on it.
Curtis, can you explain that a little bit more? What you're saying? You're saying the sloping of the garage floors?
If we look at the elevation of the historic structure, Glenwood Avenue is doing that, right? So we actually do have some of that language in truth when we're looking at that Glenwood Avenue elevation. Of course, I don't know if the parking deck is going the same angle or the opposite angle, but it's immaterial. But at least there's some of that there, so it's not completely foreign. But more so to me, between the fenestration, all the members between the mesh, we do have a nice strong grid pattern, and the mesh does seem to be softening the bleed through from the actual illumination of the deck. So in my mind, I think we are, hitting congruity, or not hitting incongruity, I guess is the way we're supposed to put it. What are your thoughts? You were strongest on this.
Well, I think that they solved the problem when they got either the railroad or the city made the railroad or the city allowed them to go to a 30% mesh. I understand that based on, and I don't know if they said this last time or not, but I heard it loud and clear this time, that they've changed the railroad side not to a property line, but to a different type of division so that they could have more opening and therefore more cross ventilation, therefore not having to have as large of holes in the mesh to make it flow airwise. And I think that's basically what needed to occur to get the screening correct.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Well, the staff also pointed to the.
Curtis, Janine, did you have a comment?
My bad.
Oh, thank you. Just was gonna thank the applicant for continuing to improve and listen to the sort of our concerns and address them. And I do think once again, I think this is maybe the third time this has come through, but I think it's once again, it's been improved this time, taking a look at it. And I'm going to echo what Curtis said about, I think it really does feel like they've softened that transparency issue that I know for me, that was something we discussed last time. I was looking forward to seeing improvement on. So thank you.
Curtis?
Staff suggested that we look at the signage plan. I'm hungry, I guess. Signage plan, suggesting that it might be incongruous according to guidelines 183 and 1811. And we haven't really discussed that and put that to bed.
We really didn't have a presentation from the applicant on that, and so I didn't know. I read what staff wrote, but I'd like to know more about what the graphic understanding of what the verbiage was.
Okay. Well, with that, let's reopen the public hearing and see if we can hear more from the applicant on the signage.
A good question. Thank you for the prompt on that. So what we were endeavoring to do was to try to create a signage master plan before there were any tenants in place, to try to save you all the effort of reviewing every single tenant sign. The reality is despite our best efforts, it's really difficult to do that at this stage. And we've had good back and forth with Tanya and the team at RHDC, but I don't know that we know enough yet to get there. So I think we're fine pulling that or pushing that and continuing to work with staff if that works for all of you. And we'll, as we get further along the process, we can bring back more detail.
Any other questions for the applicant? Curtis? Yeah.
One of the staff's comments saying that specifically Zone 1 includes verbiage. Each retail tenant is allowed to have one sign per structural bay, which could possibly result in several signs located in each bay. Are there multiple tenants per bay, or is there actually a single sign per bay?
So that's part of the challenge, Curtis, is I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's doubtful, but until we actually have tenants in place, we can't answer that with absolute certainty.
Okay.
John, did you have a question?
No, but the last statement kind of brought it to the realm to where it seems like it's a design issue that the designers can work out, whether it's one sign or one sign with 3 businesses or 3 signs. And I think that this could be very well reviewed by staff rather than us having to kind of get into the weeds with it, in my opinion.
Are there any other questions for the applicant before I close the public hearing once again? Okay. At this point, the public hearing is closed, and I'll turn to any further internal discussion on the signage or the application in general.
So I'm thinking that what we want to do, I'm sorry. I just hopped on in. I'm bad. Go ahead. I'm thinking what we need to do is that the proposed signage needs to be reviewed by staff prior to installation, and leave it at that as far as a condition. And my question is it, should we ask for it all to come at once or just have it come one at a time?
I don't know that you can, I'm sorry, I don't know that you can do it
Janine.
one at a time. My bad.
I'm just trying to be order here for the record. Janine, do you have a comment? Then we'll come back to John.
Well, my comment, Curtis definitely beat me to that comment, which was to punt on the signage only because we can't know what it is that they're proposing yet without them knowing what they're proposing. And I don't know that we need to go down avenues of all the iterations of what that would look like. So that was my suggestion too.
John?
Minor thing that I don't even know what I have nothing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sandy, do you have any comments on anything?
No, thank you.
All right. Well, it sounds like, based on the comments that we've had in this internal discussion, that we are ready to make a motion. John?
I was trying to hide behind my desk. Okay.
I'm happy to give it a shot, John.
Please do. Please, please, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you kindly, sir.
This time.
Okay. I move that constructing a new building, constructing a are not incongruous in concept according to guidelines sections 1.3.2, 0.6, 0.7, 0.9, 0.12, 1.5, 0.5, 0.6, 3.3, 0.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 0.10, 0.11, 0.12, 3.5, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.9, and the following facts. Setting 1, 2, under sighting and setback, changing the repeated 1 to 1A and 2 to 2A. 3 through 46, adding fact 47. The view angle from Glenwood Avenue is 35 degrees at maximum. 48, the mesh is 30% open. 49, the garage is illuminated with 3,000 Kelvin lamps. Let's see. 50, the Glenwood Avenue is at an angle relative to the historic structure's windows. 51, that the garage is not externally illuminated. And 52, that the east side of the structure is now clad in mesh. And B, that implementing a signage plan is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines sections 1.8.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, and 0.8. Citing facts 1 through 6.
Is there a second? Seconded by John. Any discussion? All right. Do we take a full vote before we update the conditions? Is that right? Okay. All those in favor? Just raise your hand. Okay, and that is me, Curtis, Janine, John, and Sandy. So that is unanimous. And let's go with the follow-up motion, Curtis.
I move that we approve the application as submitted with conditions outlined in staff report 1 through 7, adding condition 8 that the proposed signage be reviewed by staff prior to installation.
Curtis, this is Colette. That is condition 3.
Okay, it's there twice. I'm sorry, my bad. No 8. Thank you, Colette.
Is there a second? Janine? All right. All those in favor? That's Curtis, Janine, John, Sandy, and myself, so that's unanimous. Okay. And so this COA application has been approved. Thank you very much to the applicant team again for participating with us this evening. Thank you for the hard work that you've done over the past month and even longer to meet the guidelines and to really be complimentary of the historic building. We really, really appreciate it. So you're welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but otherwise you can go ahead and leave and you'll receive formal notification of the outcome within 10 working days. So thank you all again. Okay. And with that, we will go to our next hearing. This is COA-0162 2021, 2307 Van Dyke Avenue. I have, okay, got 3 people. Speak for this one. Go to your screen. Okay, definitely gonna have to help me with the last name on this one. Vince DeFreitas.
Vince is here.
Hello. Okay. Do you confirm and assent that this remote meeting and the special procedures?
I do.
Great. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Douglas Williams?
Yes.
Okay. Do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
I do.
Great. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Great. And Thyla Williams? Ms. Williams, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Do you confirm and assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
I do.
Okay. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Raz? Is there
Thank you, Jay.
anything that you need to add?
Normally, after the staff makes its presentation, I would just make my comments to Mr. DeFreitas if
Okay.
he's appearing as the leadoff presenter and he is the named applicant in the case.
So at this point, then we will turn it over to Aaron Morton to make the staff presentation.
Sure. So this is case COA 162, 2021 for 2307 Van Dyke Avenue in the Oberlin Village Historic District. The request is to demolish a house, an outbuilding, and associated site features. Next slide. This is a view of 2307 Van Dyke from across the street. Next slide. A closer view of the front facade of the existing house. Next slide. And the front porch and side yard area. Next slide. This is, I believe, the east side of the house with the front addition flat roof portion in the foreground. Next slide. And the driveway west side of the house looking back toward the street. Next slide. And the rear facade of the house. Next slide. This is a view of the larger rear yard with some of those site features and trees and landscaping associated. Next slide. And a view looking toward the back of the lot where you see the existing shed to be removed as well. Next slide. And a close-up of the shed. Next slide. And some rear trees along the rear property line. Next slide. More rear yard, I think looking west. Next slide. The staff suggestion is to approve with conditions. Next slide. And no new information was provided for this case.
Thank you, Aaron. Is there anything that the applicant would like to share or present to the commission?
Not to be redundant from what's already in our application, but essentially we are requesting that the home be demolished. It's designated as a non-contributing structure due to its multiple additions, vinyl siding, and other miscellaneous changes to the exterior of the home. It's in very deteriorated condition, badly sloping floors, rotting, and not really a home that meets the needs of the current homeowner. And we'll of course be presenting an application for the new house once those plans are complete.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
If I might just make the attorney's comments to Mr. DeFreitas. He began the presentation. I didn't have a chance to didn't care to interrupt. Mr. DeFreitas, I see that you are you are appearing for Silver Developers, the named applicant in the case. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, of course, and the North Carolina State Bar has given a formal ethics opinion that says that individuals appearing to represent others in these proceedings might be, you should perhaps be concerned with the unauthorized practice of law. Attorneys are supposed to appear representing applicant parties and making arguments, questioning witnesses, cross-examining witnesses, summarizing the case, and that sort of things that an attorney would do. Are you willing to acknowledge and agree that to the extent that you've made statements or that you will be making statements in response to questions, that you are appearing as a fact witness only and not to represent Silver Developers and to appear as a representative, as an attorney would in a court of law? Are you able to agree to that?
Yes, I'll agree to that. I'm just a fact witness.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of the application?
This is Erin. I would suggest unmuting Douglas first to see if he'd like to speak and then ask him to recognize Thalia.
Okay, sure.
Actually,
Douglas,
Douglas just stepped out of the room. But we're okay with Vince speaking for us.
Okay. So nothing for you, Mr. and Mrs. Williams, to add. Okay, at this time anyway. Okay, and is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the case? All right. So now we will take questions from the commission for the applicant. If there are any questions? None from Curtis? None from John? None from Janine? None from Sandy? Okay. With that, we will close the public hearing and turn to internal discussion. John, did you have something? Or
No.
Janine?
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is more a question for staff, and I guess I just don't actually know the answer to this, but we're continuously sort of encouraging homeowners who are going to demolish structures to get them documented and other provisions that we think are important. But we can we or can we not enforce that as a condition? I guess that's my question.
The public hearing is still open. Is that correct, Verche?
No, it's closed. Can staff not speak during the closed portion?
No.
Okay.
Only for committee deliberation.
Okay, let's reopen the public hearing now. Erin, could you please answer the question?
This is Erin.
Sorry, I didn't know that. Go ahead.
I'm actually going to ask Raz to speak to the legality of conditions.
You're muted, Raz.
I'm sorry about that. I think lawyers could probably have a debate on that point. The line is that you are prohibited by statute from preventing the demolition of a structure. You can impose the delay, but the bottom line is that you don't have the raw legal authority to say that the demolition may not occur. Certainly not within the maximum demolition delay period of 365 days. So you could impose that condition if after 365 days they have not complied with that condition. Would the commission be in, or that condition, would the committee have the authority to find them in violation because they're demolishing without having complied with, you know, that's a tough call. You know, you could urge them to do that, or you could set a condition, and down the road, if the condition is not met within 365 days, then the question would be, do you have the legal right to enforce that condition? And you know, I don't have an unequivocal answer for you. I mean, there are arguments on both sides. So that's, you know, you could impose that, but I could not express to you an opinion that it would be enforceable at the end of the day or at the end of the demo period. But in this case, I think the recommendation is not to impose a delay period.
Right.
So it's simply you know, you can put the condition in there, but is it enforceable? I have a hard time assuring you that it would be. Someone would have to go to court and get an injunction against the demolition because the condition hadn't been complied with. It raises some sticky legal questions. But you can try. You can try.
And I want to be clear that I personally am not thinking in this case with this structure not being, with it not being non-contributing structure and all the changes, I wasn't going there with that. That wasn't what I was thinking we were doing, but I was just curious because staff in their report said it could be incongruous according to guidelines to demolish without documenting. And I just was trying to understand. We could recommend it, but it sounds like possibly not enforce it.
Tanya raising her hand.
Okay, Tanya?
Hi, I just wanted to speak to the practicality of it when it comes to pulling a demolition permit, that the permit issuers would check to see if a valid COA had been issued. So if it is within the 365 days, there is that level of, in enforcement. Regular, in the guidelines, it lists out that recordation is one of the things that is supposed to be done as part of demolition. And so getting the regular recordation done is something that has been conditioned regularly, and staff has not had an issue with compliance.
And if I could repeat back to her, Tanya, so what you're saying is they will not issue the demolition permits until you have the blue card formally issued by the commission. That's what you're saying? And I know I'm ignoring the 365 day delay issue, but that's the sequence of operations. Yes?
Correct. They have they have to have the COA to do the next step.
Okay, so inherently they have to satisfy the conditions before getting their permit, so. Okay.
Madam Chair, one thing I'll add, you have discretion, and it's fairly broad, to impose the delay. So it would be possible for an order to impose a delay to run until such time as the condition is complied with, and then the delay will expire. The delay order or the delay requirement will go away. So that's one legal angle that could be employed in order to impose the condition, because you do have that broad discretion. You have to, if you find as part of your order that the structure is non-contributing, the statute mandates that you shall waive all or a part of such period. So you couldn't just say the 365-day delay is going on this property because you found that it's non-contributing. But you have some discretion up to 365, and that can be in order to leverage compliance with the condition under the guidelines, if you choose to do that.
Okay, John?
Raz got to the point that I was going to make very easily. That because I noticed in there that staff said that we waived the 365, but I think if we basically just say, get your homework done, and then you can tear it down that day if you want to. The other point I was going to bring up was, is it necessary that they document the entire house, or is it that they need to document the portion that is historically significant, i.e. the period of the house before all the additions got put on? Or is it possible for that to happen? And, or, you know, I was trying to make their lives simpler by not having them to do so much documentation, by just documenting what was contributing at the time. Does that make sense?
Does. Tanya, do you want to address that?
Typically, we request that the entire exterior be recorded as it stands now without doing any investigation to determine
Okay.
what.
I understand. Okay.
And we do it photographically and by drawings.
Okay.
But we're not looking for floor plans. We're just looking for elevations, measured elevations, basically.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. But I think that in itself, I think by setting up a scenario where their deadline or their waiver of imposed a delay to demolish the house is based on how fast they can get the documentation done. And then I assume that if they go ahead and wait the entire 365 days, I guess that's a way to get out of the documentation. I assume.
Staff is going to ask for it before we issue the blue placard.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions for the applicant or for staff? All right. At this time, I'll close the public hearing and we can turn to internal discussion.
Madam Chair, if there are not any pressing comments, I will be happy to make a motion.
Go for it.
Okay.
Lovely.
Please proceed.
Are there any, does anybody have anything? I just want to make sure. Okay. Based on the information contained in the application and staff's evaluation and the evidence in this specific hearing, demolishing a non-contributing house and outbuilding and site features is not incongruous according to guideline sections 1.6.1.2, 4.2.4.5. However, demolition without recordation is incongruous according to guidelines 1.3.7, 1.6.5, 4.2.2, 4.2.3, 4.2.6, and the following facts 1 through 10.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All right. John, do you want to go with the follow-up?
Yes. Don't we need to vote on that?
Yes, sorry. All right. Janine, yes. Are you voting? Okay.
I'm voting.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. I'll say your names. That's Curtis, Janine, Rashad, John, and Sandy. So that is unanimous. Okay, and now we'll go with the follow-up motion.
I move that we approve this application with the following conditions as noted in staff report 1 through 6.
Second.
Okay. And that's seconded by Curtis. All in favor?
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Janine, yes.
Could I ask, do we need to give any more description what full documentation of the building with photos and measured architectural drawings is? I feel like that sounds pretty thorough. Is that something we need to specify? Were we talking just about exterior elevations?
I would agree.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to be clarified because I think what's implied is far more detailed than what we've discussed here this evening.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be added in there from staff because they're the ones who have that in their head.
And what I'd like to suggest is that we actually ask for measured drawings of the regulated portion of the buildings as a rote way of doing it, because in street side historic districts, there's different portion regulated than in a full historic district. And also in individual structures, there's some structures where the interiors are regulated. So maybe
Good point.
key way
Good
to do
point. Yeah, good point.
And Tanya raising her hand.
Yes, Tanya, go ahead.
I would like to make a suggestion that perhaps staff can bring back to the minutes as part of the minutes at the next meeting, a more fully developed description based on what we've heard from you tonight.
Great.
And that we can then use, moving forward as a standard recordation condition.
That sounds great.
And one more suggestion, not required. It's a nice to have, not a got to have, because I'm befuddled why we go through the elevations and the photographs and everything, but we don't require a floor plan if they're going to be doing drawings. I'd see at least a footprint of the thing in plan. It seems like that would be.
I assume the goal of this is to be able to recreate the structure after the fact, or have that level of knowledge of what was there.
Well, enough to be dangerous, yeah.
Yeah. Then to build an incomplete entity, but yeah.
Right. And so that it's, and especially if the interiors aren't that important, like in some they are, some they're not, that just the building footprint so that you can, when you see the elevations, you know where the setbacks are. This is just my suggestion.
Staff will take that into consideration when what we bring back to you.
Well, and if could I comment one last thing too, is just to that point that John's getting at, the actual just what's happening on the site, I think is all relevant to if they're taking out any site structures, anything else happening there, just that big picture, just thinking of often we're looking at the, that NOLI plan, that kind of figure ground. So that would be good to have.
And the street in context, or the house in context of the street that it's in. Yeah.
Okay, I believe we already voted on this, do we not? Do we do the final vote?
We didn't do the final vote. We did the motion in second.
Okay, so all in favor. And that is Rashay, Janine, Curtis, John, and Sandy. And that is unanimous. And with that, we want to very much thank the applicant for being with us this evening. We wish you the best of luck as you move forward and kind of redeveloping the site. And we're looking very much forward to seeing what you come up with in the future. So thank you. You're welcome to stay, but you can also leave whenever you'd like. And you'll receive formal notification of your approval within approximately 10 working days from staff. Okay. And then with that, we'll move on to our third and final case for this evening. And that is COA 0168-2021, 410 Morrison Street. Okay. And I've got 3 speakers listed for this one. And it looks like we've had a little change in who the primary speaker is, which I assume is fine. So let's start with Susan Perry. Are you there, Susan? Hi.
Yes, here. Hi,
Okay. Do you confirm an assent to this remote meeting and the special procedures?
I do.
Great. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. John Montgomery?
Shay, this is Aaron. I believe John had indicated he may not be in attendance. Susan can confirm that.
And what about Eliza Montgomery?
Yes, I'm in attendance.
Okay, great. Do you confirm an assent to this remote meeting and special procedures?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now we'll call on staff to make a presentation summarizing the key issues with this case.
All right, this is Aaron. This is case COA 168-2021 at 410 Morrison Street in the Oakwood Historic District. The request is to alter front door and window openings, alter front porch, remove front steps, and construct front steps. Next slide. This is a view of 410 Morrison Street from the right-of-way and a side angle there of the existing steps and porch configuration. Next slide. This is a view of the east elevation of the property. No work is proposed on this side. Next slide. And the existing driveway area and porch in more context. Next slide. And a view of the existing front door and front window details. Next slide. And another driveway, sorry about that. Next slide. And a view looking directly down the porch, the existing concrete steps. Next slide. Staff suggestion is to defer to allow the applicant to revise the design based on committee discussion. However, should the committee choose to render a decision, staff suggests that the alteration of the front door and window be denied and the removal and reconstruction of the front steps be approved with conditions. Next slide. There is new information provided for the case prior or after the completion of the staff report, including a full site survey, front porch alteration evidence, and an additional neighborhood example photo. And that's all.
Thank you, Aaron. At this point, we'll hear from Ms. Perry, let's hear from Ms. Perry.
Great. Thank you, Chair Height. We really appreciate your taking the time to host us this evening. As you have read in our request, we're requesting a few changes basically to improve the safety and ease of access to this building. This is part of a very small portion of the Oakwood Historic Districts that's zoned mixed use. So it would be zoned for office, service, and retail in addition to residential. It's on an extremely constrained lot. And our purpose is to try to alter the access by changing the steps, which are currently uneven and steep and very slippery in the winter. We had proposed making those steps more even and accessible and slightly altering the porch floor. Definitely not removing any opening or any feature on the front, but just carefully transposing the existing front window and front door locations with all their details, with all their existing material in order to make the access more safe and more contemporary. In addition, subsequently to submitting the proposal, we discovered that a great deal of what's on the porch now is not original. So most of the decoration that you see, the sawn work, the balustrades, the columns, the rail, all of that has been added subsequent to the construction of the building originally. And I know staff was concerned initially with what material we would use to fill the portion of the front facade under the window when we switched the position of the window and the door. And we had said, obviously, we would fill it with siding, but on closer inspection, we have determined that much of the siding on the front of the building is actually new and is not a match for the siding, the original siding on the rest of the building. So this would permit us to change all of that incorrect siding with siding that was a match for the original siding in the building.
Thank you, Ms. Perrin. Are there any additional comments from Eliza Montgomery?
I don't have any additional comments at the moment. No, thank you.
Okay. All right. And these are all that we have signed up to speak. So I'm assuming that there is no one listed to speak in opposition of this case. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to comments or questions for the applicant from the commissioners. Are there any questions? John?
I have one question. In the alternate approaches sheet that I'm looking at, it brings up the question because right now it doesn't. You're kind of just the steps are in a kind of gravel parking lot. Are you limited about how far you can come out into that gravel driveway? I guess it says edge of driveway 8 feet from side of lot. I guess I've just answered my own question. That's as far as you can go to get any kind of rise and run prior to hitting the porch. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So the property line isn't all the way at the edge of the gravel drive that you see. The property line is more than 2.5 feet in from that wall.
Gotcha. I understand. And you don't have but you could go more steps perpendicular to the sidewalk. No, you couldn't because you only got so much short feet. I got you. Okay.
It's right on. It's right on.
Right on the sidewalk. Yeah.
Usually, this particular building is situated closer to the sidewalk. In fact, virtually right on the sidewalk. In contrast to almost everything else on the street.
Yeah, I get you. I had the same situation here at the Norton Grocery when I redid that one. And at that time, we were not a historic neighborhood, so I just put the steps right out on the sidewalk. Can't do that anymore. No. So, yeah, I understand your problem. I get it. Oh, and one more thing. I wanted to, and this is where I'm going to put my little professorial hat on to help you help understand where we as a commission may be coming from on this. Historic preservation, in true historic preservation, is not about not just about maintaining the character of the building, but in true historic preservation, it is an archival record, like a visual library of where this place has been and where it is now. And so I get, and this is just where I'm coming from on this as an initial thing, so that you kind of hear me out on this. Flipping that door and window that's a major rewrite of the base script, and how one documents that, saying that that's been done, is very difficult to do. As a little side example, one of the things that we as architects had to do one time when we took out a wall in a historic building was that we had to figure out a way that we could show where that wall had been once that wall was removed, i.e. putting in a fake beam or putting even a kind of strip of carpet that was different than the rest of the carpet to demark where that wall had been. And when we get into completely flipping that door and that window, there's no way to kind of, put a guideline there and says, well, this is where the door used to be and this is where the window used to be. So just to kind of help you understand where we're coming from on this, I just wanted to kind of share that with you.
Thank you.
Curtis?
Yeah, a couple questions. The existing concrete steps where they meet the sidewalk, how wide are they currently? And where this is coming from is I'm noticing the width of the steps is differing in the multiple alternate approaches, the proposed improvements, and the existing conditions relative to what looks like a line on the sidewalk. And I don't know whether it's the line moving or the step width changing.
I'm going to ask Eliza to answer that question, please.
Hi, yes. I believe that they are less than, or I believe that they are 3 feet, but let me just double check. I can double check that right now.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Sorry about this. One moment. Yes, those are 3 feet right now.
Okay. And I'm noting that alternate approach 2 has 11-inch treads, and the proposed design are 12-inch treads. I'm wondering, if we look at alternate approach 3, if you retained the 3-foot wide staircase coming off of the street and reduced the treads on the wooden portion, this currently wooden portion of the stairs, down to 11 inches, if that would allow you to hit the porch both at the appropriate elevation with enough clearance from the door and minimize the alteration to the porch itself.
So the, let's see, if you look at alternate approach 2, that is the only way to basically get from the sidewalk elevation up to the porch elevation, while still having the stairs orient themselves towards the sidewalk as opposed to towards the driveway. And yes, that does fit within that space, but the risers are still above code. They're taller than 7 inches.
Gotcha.
So that's why that is that's why that alternate is not ideal.
And following up on that, if you added an additional tread that would sit within the footprint of the side light on the door.
Chair, this is Erin.
I know it's designed by committee.
I just want to point with permission from the chair, I just want to point to one of the facts in the last fact in the staff report, that the application materials provided include alternate designs that are not proposed for consideration in this application. We debated whether they were appropriate to include in the original application materials at all, and that fact is meant to address that they shouldn't be considered or reviewed in your decision.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Then I will withdraw the question at that.
Did you have any other questions, Curtis, or can we go to John?
I think we can move on.
I just wanted to point out one thing too here is that when, and maybe there's some way you can get around it in a historic scenario. I don't know how, but anytime you go 3 risers or more, you have to have a handrail. So while you could do any 3 risers, and I know we're not discussing these are alternate approaches. I'm just trying to throw that out as another thing hurdle you're going to have to get over is once you go above 4 risers or 3 risers, you've got to have a handrail in there.
Yes, we would need to have a handrail in there. Yes.
Yeah. So that's going to complicate your world even more. Because it can't be freestanding because it would cut the stair in half and it'd be too narrow. So it's a conundrum.
I'm gonna let Raz comment out. I feel like he's gonna.
Verche, I just wanted to point out, you probably need to make sure that the individuals responding to questions just identify themselves. I was having a hard time looking at the speaker list to see who was actually offering the testimony. So you might need to remind them of that, if you would.
Great. And so who was responding to John's comment about the handrail?
That was Liza Montgomery.
Great, thank you. Okay. John? No further questions? Okay, any other questions for the applicant? All right. At this point, I'll close the public hearing and we will turn to internal discussion. Janine?
I really do appreciate the challenge here because especially having seen what maybe we should pretend we can unsee all those options, I really appreciate the fact that it's a very hard stair to rebuild to code and not be altering the historic porch and features. But to me, this feels very just open and closed that this is, I would not be able to think, this is not congruous with the porch, the modifications to the porch. There's guidelines 2.8.9. There's all the guidelines listed in the staff report, I think are very strong guidelines that say that this porch, the original entrance and porch should not be altered in this way. And there's no precedents being given, I think, that are showing this extent of impact on a porch. I appreciate that there's other examples of the stairs. They're all outside of the porch. They're not invasive with the porch itself. So I feel as though this is something that I would take the recommendation of staff to defer this so that this can be redesigned.
Curtis?
I agree with Jean, and especially with regard to wanting to throw it back for redesign. We do have the staff evidence that was added in here, 15 South Bloodworth and 17 South Bloodworth, that show somewhat inset stairs reaching the porch. And understanding that the porch had been altered since its original construction, based on some of the evidence that we've received, it certainly suggests that the porch structure isn't necessarily original material. My inclination would be to either continue the case for redesign or deny in part the the relocation of the window and the door because it is so clearly against the guidelines. And put in a condition there that the redesign of the stairs can only protrude into the porch, 1 or 2 treads. Is one of the things, using my architecture hat that I was certainly driving towards in my questioning, is that it appears possible to achieve the connection of the street to the porch without overlapping the doorway, providing they have the latitude to punch into the porch a step, at most, which seems like would be the best way to solve all interests here, because then we could meet code, minimize alteration of the facade, or actually have no alteration of the facade, minimize alteration of the porch.
John?
I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit, Curtis, because while it's not the original materials, it is the original design. And it goes back to just like the window and the door in the original position is an original design element. And if you were to put stairs into that porch, how do you tell the story that they could be ripped out and the old porch could be put back, which is the kind of rule of law for other things like that. So I'm not quite sure that I would go so far as to say that the stairs can come into the porch. I don't know that I don't know that I would put that much leeway in the, I'd let them propose it, but I don't know that I would give it as an option that basically gives them the ability to do it as a solution.
Curtis?
The additional evidence in the inventory of structures, alterations, it says the front porch's hip roof sheath standing seam turned metal was probably originally supported by 3 Tuscan columns with square section balustrade reflecting the colonial revival style. The front porch was rebuilt prior to 87 with coupled and tripled slender square section posts and sawnwork ornament on top of the post, blah, 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 blah. So we do have evidence that it's been substantially altered. And I agree with punching into it. It's not something I would want to encourage. But I'm offering that thought as it is. It suggests that there's a way to do this without relocating that door and still meet code. And that's really...
And I agree with that. I agree with that. I just don't know that I'd want to put it into words as to this is the way to do it.
Okay, I am fine with that.
Yeah.
Janine?
I think also deferring this for a redesign gives the applicant a chance to identify the railing that I think is definitely something we would want to understand for this project as well.
This is Erin, Chair. Would you be amenable to reopening the public hearing for a comment?
Sure, I think that's fine.
Thank you. We have spoken with the applicant preparation for tonight's meeting. And I believe that one of their initial primary goals would be to avoid deferral. And we've had some discussions with them. If you would like to recognize Susan to see what she would like to request, if she's comfortable with deferral or has something else to offer, that might be helpful to her.
Sure. Ms. Perry, would you like to speak?
Feeling of the committee is that the switching of the location of the door and the window is unquestionably incongruous. I think we would probably, in the interest of time and in the interest of getting this project going, we would probably prefer to have the option to work with staff on a renovation of the stairs that is completely outside of the scope of the front porch, regardless of the authenticity of the front porch. So, and I think as you will notice, there is already an existing, if you look at the photographs of the building as it stands now, there is already a railing that I believe the current owner was given permission to construct that goes down the stairs, both the west-facing rise and the south-facing rise. So we could presumably avoid the complicated question of a railing by just not altering that rail and try to reconstruct the stairway by working with staff, just in whatever way we can to try to improve the safety and the evenness of those stairs. So may I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes.
So I just want to clarify what you're saying. You're basically saying go ahead and deny the application to move the door and the window, and let us work with staff to figure out how to deal with the stairs.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
And then given that, we will not do anything else to the front of the porch. We won't replace the mismatched siding or any of that. We'll just leave it as is.
I think that's fair.
Janine?
Question for staff. With that being said, this is more of sort of a maintenance almost application at that point, it seems, right? That I'm just questioning whether staff feels comfortable if.
Oh, true, it's maintenance.
Yeah, it's maintenance on an existing stair that needs to be, kept up.
I guess.
Ms. Aaron, we are comfortable with the suggested conditions in the staff report with reviewing this as placard conditions of the existing major work. It would need to be reviewed by staff rather than no COA required due to the change in material.
Okay.
So are we still needing to?
I think we still need to go through the process of denying the move and setting it up so that staff can take over.
Okay, great. So at this point, I will close the public hearing. And I think we are ready for a motion.
I'll do it if you guys want me to.
Sure.
Okay. I move that based on information in the application in the public hearing, we find that the altering of the front door and window openings is incongruous according to guidelines 2.6.8, 2.7.1, 2.7.2, 2.8.1, 2.8.9, and the following suggested facts, citing facts 1 through 9, and B, that removing the front steps and constructing new front steps is not congruous in concept according to guidelines 2.8.1 and 2.8.5. However, altering the front porch, a character-defining feature of the primary facade, is incongruous according to the guidelines 2.8.1 and 2.3.4.9. And the following suggested facts, 1 through 10, adding fact 11, that the porch has been altered since its original construction. Fact 12, that the existing concrete steps are 3 feet wide. That's my motion.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor? That's Brashay, Janine, John, Curtis, and Sandy. So that's unanimous.
Okay.
Right. Any discussion? Okay. Follow-up motion, Curtis?
Okay. I move that the application be denied in part and approved with conditions in part. The part to be denied is the alteration of the front door and window. And the part that is approved with conditions is the reconstruction of the stairs. With the following conditions, 1 through 5, adding condition 6, that the railing be retained or replaced in kind.
Janine, do you have a question?
Friendly amendment, do we want to say also denied is the alteration of the porch floor? Encroaching and modifying the porch floor?
I accept that alteration.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Sandy. And then all in favor of denial? That is Brochet, Sandy, Janine, John, and Curtis. And so that is unanimous. Okay. So that COA application was denied in part and approved with conditions in the other part. I want to thank the applicant for sticking through to the end of this meeting. We appreciate the work and the studies that you have done on such a tightly configured site. It is it's tough. It's a tough one. But we appreciate your willingness and your openness to kind of preserve the historic character of the building by not moving the door and window. So we wish you good luck and you're in good hands with staff. And again, thank you very much for your time. Right. Come back to the agenda. Okay, the next item on the agenda is other business. Any committee discussion with that? I think Tanya, do you all usually let us know if there's anything we need to discuss?
Tanya here, we would list it if there were. The only thing I would point out is just to let you know, I did earlier this afternoon send out a new email with dates, potential dates in January for the training. It's a lot of them. It's a lot of dates, so take a moment and scroll through. There are multiple times on each day, so we can get that scheduled when everybody can be there. That's all I had.
Okay, great. Did anyone on the commission have anything else? All right. Okay, well, with that, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. I think I'm supposed to say happy holidays because we won't see each other again. So
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yeah.
I would like to remind Nicole to stay in the WebEx so we can chat about next steps for minutes.
Yes, I'm hanging back. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, you all enjoy the rest of your 20.
Take care, all.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.